Um, so there's going to be a couple of different things since there's some technicality to what this story actually is, but I'm happy to explain it at the end. Sanguine first contact. Catherine attempted to relax on her couch, reflecting on the deal she had struck, when the voice in her head spoke. "Do you have any doubts, my dear?" "I feel as if I have gotten more than I bargained for," she said aloud, knowing the voice would be the only one to hear her. "Let me tell you a story, then. Maybe it will help you understand me and how this should not be too difficult for you." Before they continued, Catherine saw a long, pale, womanly figure materialize from a sudden red mist. They looked like an astonishingly beautiful woman, of long dark hair, reddish eyes, and a sultry smile, outfitted in what looked like a carefully weaved long void black dress, with carefully placed crimson detailing in the hem and the collar. "Now this is a bit easier to talk, don't you agree?" they said, the same voice inside her mind, if in actual physical space, calm and gentle, yet with a distant edge. "I guess so," Catherine replied, still surprised by this image. "I did not know you could do that. I thought you were a vessel." "Still am, but I can materialize occasionally when it is convenient. And considering how we have become close, I feel it is only fair to explain." Their soft smile widened. "As you wish, milady. I am listening," Catherine managed to say, still taken aback by this powerful being giving her this much attention. "So let me tell you a story. You see, I've actually made contact with humans long before you could tread the stars, and before covens as powerful as your own managed to establish themselves in such attractive and powerful ways, shall we say?" Their eyes glistened as they continued. "As I was saying, this happened almost 2,000 years ago, if I recall. It all took place in your people's home planet, in a small island dominated by its neighboring power. You see, I was in an exploratory time of my existence, searching for different species to understand and play with a little. This time, I wanted to do something subtle. And so, I decided to find someone who would spread my name and write a story about me. As you can see, I managed to create a very striking image of myself as human." "Indeed, milady," Catherine replied, as the pieces began falling into place for her. There was a reason it all seemed quite familiar. "So that is how the folklore of Carmilla was born?" Carmilla laughed heartily, as much as a great one could, evidently amused by something Catherine had said, with no clue about what could have been so hilarious. "You flatter me by saying folklore. By then it was, well, I guess it was made that way, but written as pure fiction, thankfully." Their smile inverted, and Catherine could feel displeasure now, even disdain. "What I did not enjoy was how pathetically portrayed I am. Admittedly, he could not conceive I was anything other than human, an odd human if anything, but it does not justify how it was so insipid in it. In Mr. Sheridan Le Fanu's story, for that was his name," their voice venomous now, "I am a languid and feeble vampire that gets destroyed by a petty man who appears with no explanation. I have no real glory or validation. I am just a monster. But you can see, Catherine, and feel that I am much more than that, my dear." "How awful," Catherine commented, reacting to the being speaking without moving their lips. "According to our legends, you were a powerful blood drinker who lay asleep in a coffin of blood." "Ha! If it were just that. Do you know what is hysterical about this story? He thought I would be proud." Catherine reacted with a sympathetic sigh and a face that recognized such treatment. "He thought I would enjoy being a silly beast that gets killed off." The voices mingled, the one in her head and of the form in front of her, compounding her cry and presence ominously. "Ahem. Excuse me." They sat up again, inhaling and exhaling. "It still gets me a bit sour. Such have been most men of your species. Guess I had to find that out for myself. This may sound unimportant, but according to the folklore of it that I and most of our coven have heard, in it the character that represents you is not ultimately called Carmilla. I would imagine you weren't happy about it either," Catherine wondered, embracing her curiosity. Well, Carmilla's smile turned into a malicious grin. What was it he said again? Carmilla's more sympathetic than fierce as a name. He had the gall to say that to me! That is why he used anagrams of my name for the actual vampire. Now, ultimately, I am pleased that my real name became more famous, along with having been the titular one, but it was, again, still displeasing. So, what did you do about it? Catherine half imagined the incoming answer, but by this point she wanted to know all she could. Mr. Lefanu thought he did me a great service with his story. I will say we enjoyed each other's company while it lasted. However, when he presented me this after I requested it to him as a favor of sorts, I was quite angry. So I questioned him and painstakingly explained why it was a dreadful picture of me, not to speak of his contention towards certain sexual preferences. Oh, how humans truly have some of the terrible prejudices. But as I was saying, no matter how much I tried to show how bad it was, he kept disregarding me, to the point that he said he had enough of me. Oh, what a mistake that was. They were smiling, red eyes glowing, with a face that showed deep thought elsewhere. I can imagine you made him pay dearly, Catherine commented, disgusted. You have no idea. You see, and thus I am reaching the relevant part of the story in relation to you. Back then, in the deals and contracts I made with mortal beings, I was not particularly straightforward, nor in there being an actual deal, nor in what it would entail, and less clear still about the consequences of disappointing me. Nowadays, I try to be more transparent and avoid reaching out to species in more primitive stages. What you're saying is that along with me having struck an evident deal with you, you'll ask me openly what must be done? Catherine questioned, the posture still. Not ask, demand. Their tone was cold, if with a smile. Demand per the terms of our agreement. You decided to bond with me, as Mr. Fanu did, in your species past. Only you have the benefit of actually imbibing some of my power, and knowing full who I am. He was fine enjoying my physical companionship, so I asked little of him, just some blood and a seed to plant in his species' imagination. Yet, he disappointed me, though I guess he did succeed. They paused for a moment, as if wondering. That I most certainly did not expect. Indeed, our coven and others before us used that story as a reference to similar ones we found in different places of the galaxy to establish some truth, Catherine added. We realized you were real, as it turned out, and that we could perhaps contact you. And so it was done. But before your time, I am sure, they did not ask for my help, unlike you did. Congratulations. That was a feast I will never forget. It is our pleasure, Lady Carmilla. Oh, please call me Carmilla. I am in your head. There's no need for formalities. They waved, dismissing any special treatment for being a great one, which Catherine did find odd regardless. As I was saying, for I feel you should know what might await you should you fail me, they carried on with a twisted grin. Once Mr. Fanu discarded me, I decided to make him pay in a way that felt only fair. You see, he wrote scary stories, so I would show him whom he should fear. Me. I was discreet, showing up in a crowd, in a mirror. I slowly made him more and more paranoid, and within less than a year of that story being published, I showed him who I am. He was, quite literally, scared to death. That is not. I'll do my best to complete your orders and requests, Carmilla, Catherine swore, bowing her head and trying to hide her concern. I know you will. You have already made your choice, so you must accept the consequences. You can still decide whether you will want a gruesome death or to accept occasionally being an agent of mine in this plane. I am sure you will choose correctly. I will be amused either way. With that, and a final haunting smile, the corporeal Carmilla vanished into thin air, just as it first appeared. Nervous and uncertain about her task ahead, Catherine was still uneasy about having to serve under Carmilla, and she had her doubts whether the story was indeed comforting in any way, even as a cautionary tale. At the very least, she knew clearly that she was in servitude of the Great One. But so be it. She had made her decision to save her people, and even with these costs to her, she will face them as best as she can. All the same, the tale did make her quite a bit more fearful, or just as much, of this very powerful, egotistical, and terrifying blood-drinking Great One that is, and always has been, Carmilla, Lady of the Blood.